Dearest Ethel, remember the days when light bulbs only came in one color? None of this red, green, and blue hibbity-jibbity. You either turn them on or turn them off. No dimming necessary. And if a bulb started flickering, that's how you knew its time had come. I remember those days.
I remember those days too, Grandpa. They sucked ass. This is the Aputure B7c, and like Gerald Undone said, these are not your grandfather's light bulb. These are full color, wirelessly controllable, and can run on AC or battery power. Before I got my hands on these, I tried 4 different brands of RGB smart bulbs in my background lamps, and every single one caused a weird strobing effect. And even low power incandescent bulbs were just way too bright. I ended up having to freeze frame and mask off the background lights in all of my videos, which was a huge waste of time and caused other weird artifacts like frozen noise in the corners of my videos. Long story short, the B7c bulbs have probably saved me 10 to 20 hours of post-production time, which has made them totally worth it just for that alone. The B7c has a plastic diffuser attached to an aluminum housing, which also acts as the heatsink, so these are passively cooled, meaning there's no fan and they're silent 100% of the time. On the bottom is an E26 or E27 base, making these compatible with standard sockets anywhere in the world. They also feature plus, minus, and power buttons directly on the side of the housing of the light. This allows you to control the basic functions of these using short and long presses of single or multiple buttons. Aputure also has the instructions for these lights printed directly on the side of the housing, which is pretty genius and really useful. You can adjust the brightness, jump between presets, and switch between AC and DC power modes. For battery life, you'll get about 70 minutes out of these at full power, and at the minimum power of 0.1%, you'll get about 20 hours of battery life. I have the lights in my background lamp set to about 10% and shoot at 1/50th of a second, f2.8, and ISO 800 in Sony S-Log3. So they're plenty bright as practicals, which is their main purpose in life, and at that brightness they'll run for at least half a day on a single charge. If you have them plugged into a socket with actual power going to it, they'll run indefinitely. And in AC mode, they'll turn on and off using an external switch, just like a regular light bulb. As far as brightness goes, these are the equivalent of about a 50-watt incandescent bulb, which is what we all grew up with, assuming you were born before 1995. They have red, green, blue, white, and tungsten LEDs, so they have a color temperature range of 2000 to 10,000 Kelvin, including full color support. I measured the B7c with my Sekonic C800 and got the following results. For the brightness, I got around 140 lux, and by comparison, my Aputure MC came in at 116 lux, so these are about 1/3 stop brighter. I got a CRI of 94 or higher throughout the entire color temperature range, and a TLCI of 96 or higher. The SSI at 3200 Kelvin was 85, and at 5500 Kelvin, the SSI was 75. These are some of the highest numbers from any lights I've ever tested, so you'll have no issues with color reproduction. On the tungsten end, there's essentially no green or magenta tint, while at the maximum color temperature, there is a pretty significant green tint. However, that's all the way at 9000 or 10,000 Kelvin, and if you're going that high, you might as well just use HSI mode and set it to a desaturated blue color. That way you have more control over the actual hue. At 5500 Kelvin, I got a color correction number of just 0.3 green, which is negligible. The only thing that would make these lights better from a color standpoint would be as if they included green magenta tint control. They have very little tint throughout the majority of the color range, so it's not really a big deal. It's just on my wish list for all RGB lights nowadays. If you want to see all the measurements I took, I'll have a link in the description to my light comparison tool. It uses real-world measurements instead of manufacturer-provided specs, so it makes it easier to compare lights from different brands. Since these lights were designed for filmmaking, they're flicker-free up to at least 1000 frames per second, unless of course you have the flickering light bulb effect turned on. There are 9 total special effects, and each one has its own set of customization options within the Sidus Link app. Like all the recent Aputure lights, these two can be controlled with the Sidus Link app, which is my favorite method of remote control. It's really well designed and has about 1 million different modes apart from the usual CCT and HSI mode. Source Match lets you take a picture of another white light source and automatically matches these to that, and I found it really accurate, usually within 100 Kelvin. You can also set these to tungsten or daylight and then add digital CTB or CTO gels. This is useful if you have other traditional filmmaking lights with gels in your scene. Picker mode is just like source match but for colors, and then there's also picker effects mode, which lets you record and transmit fully customizable animated effects. It's kind of crazy and extremely awesome. Lastly, these lights are firmware updatable, so we may see even more features in the future. Maybe even tint control? We all know how much I love carrying cases, so I had to pick up the A-Light kit here. The hardshell case this kit comes in is dust-proof, lockable with any padlock that fits, and most importantly has a multi-voltage charger built directly into the case. This allows you to charge all 8 bulbs from 0 to 100% power in around 2 hours. That means you can keep these lights easily topped off during lunch, or if you're not using all 8 at the same time, you'll have fully charged backups ready to go all the time. Plus, without this case, who has 8 different lamp sockets in a single room to charge all of these individually at the same time? All jokes aside, I think the B7c may be the most underrated light out there. Honestly, it might be the best addition to my setup in the last 6 months simply because of the amount of time and frustration it saved me. These are, in my opinion, the absolute best option out there for practicals, but just because they were designed as practicals doesn't mean you can't use them to light an actual scene. These obviously aren't going to be your key light, but there's all kinds of adapters out there to put these on light stands or a flexible gooseneck and use them to add light to your actual footage. You can buy these bulbs individually for $79 or in the 8-light kit like me for $6.99. I know that might seem like a lot for just a bunch of light bulbs, but if you value your time and work, I promise you'll save more in time and frustration than these cost in money. That's not something I say often, and if there was an official new layer endorsement for lights, these would definitely be on the list. Links are in the description if you want to check these out further. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.